Mr. Battle, we have Mr. Johnson, Director Johnson and his team. Please
Yes,
come to the front. We're going to endeavor to get through this. This is they're all important budgets, but we want to make sure we get through this budget efficiently, but thoroughly. So, Director Johnson, I know you have a lengthy PowerPoint. If we could do it expeditiously so we can get to questions and whatnot. I mean, I don't want to cut you short, but just.
It's still morning. Good morning, Chair Olson, Vice Chair Harrison, committee and other council members present. Josh Hamlin with the Budget Policy Analysis Division. It's so rare I get to address you all in person.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, though?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's so rare I get to address you all in person, but I'm going to try to speed through this in the interest of time. I will be handling the Department of Public Works and Transportation's budget overview, and we'll just get started. The overall proposed FY25 budget for DPW&T is roughly $55 million, which is a decrease of $16.9 million, or 23.6% under FY24 approved budget. The overall budget is composed of four components: general fund, grants, stormwater, enterprise fund, and the transportation services improvement special revenue fund. As we go down page 1, you can see the general fund portion of the budget is approximately $16 million, which is a $5.4 million decrease over FY24. This is largely based on a decrease in costs based on a higher recovery rate. That's $12 million of that. Proposed grant funding is approximately $13.7 million, which is a $12.4 million decrease, or 47.6% under FY24 approved. That is due primarily to the removal of the low no bus emission.
What day it is?
You want me to just pull it much closer? I'm sorry. That is due to the removal of the low no bus emission grant and Maryland Bikeways grant, which between them is almost $12.6 million, and is partially offset by a new Maryland Energy Administration open energy grant. Proposed stormwater management enterprise fund budget is unchanged from FY24 at roughly $22.7 million. And the Transportation Services Improvement Fund sees an increase of $900,000, or 55.1% over FY24, and is proposed at $2.5 million. The department reported that it will be anticipating the need for supplemental appropriations both from grant funds, both for capital and operating. These are the support for that these are needed for is shown on page 2 of your report. Moving on to staffing, at the bottom of page 2, you'll see the overall authorized staffing count for the department, which increases by 2 positions, 1 full-time and 1 limited term, from 451 to 453 positions. The limited term is an ARPA position that we'll hear about a little bit later, and the full-time permanent is in the Office of Highway Maintenance. Moving on to page 3, the department reports 39 general fund vacancies. A table listing all the vacancies was attached to the responses from the department, and you should have that available to you for review. Compensation budget for FY25 is a 4.5% increase of $982,900, coming to a total of about $22.6 million. Overtime for fiscal 25 is proposed at 661,000. This reflects the information from this year, where the projected FY24 overtime expenditures are almost 900,000, which is 184,000 over their approved budget. The operating expenses have increased 6.2 million or 8.6 million above the FY24 budget. There's a chart showing all of these on page 5 of the report. General fund capital outlay is roughly 12.2 million, which is a decrease of 525,000 or 4.1% from the prior year. That decrease is largely due to last year's one-time purchase of, or FY24's one-time purchase of 2 street sweepers. FY25 capital outlay expenditures are anticipated for the purchase of 1 additional street sweeper, fixed route vehicles, paratransit equipment replacements, and other vehicles. There is detail on page 6 on the table of the capital outlay expenditures. The department's presentation really covers their organizational and operational programs in depth, so I'm going to really speed through the next several pages, just highlighting the creation of a PGC 311 team to more effectively deal with 311 calls, and I'm sure they'll talk more about that. Something that I thought was interesting is that the department is implementing a career ladder program funded from its general fund travel and training budget. This is to address, I think, in part, at least the challenges of retaining good employees who may leave due to the lack of apparent upward mobility within their career paths, and they may want to discuss that a little further as well. Did want to note that consistent with last year, there have been supply chain challenges which have delayed delivery on vehicle purchases. As of this year, vehicle delivery times are ranging from 12 to 48 months. There are some other key initiatives which I think are covered in their PowerPoint, so I'm not going to deal with them, but I do want to mention that the big transit transformation initiative rolled out in FY24. I know there's a slide or two on that you'll hear about, but that it includes basically the Transit Vision Plan, Transit Forward, Zero Emissions Bus Program, and service changes which began on several routes in November of 23 and have seen favorable results in on-time performance. Moving on to the bus, just wanted to note that there continues to be a challenge with revenues for the bus due to fare jumpers. That's not a new thing. It's not unique to the county. But it's one where if you look at the chart on page 9, you'll see that there was a big drop off from FY22 to FY23. FY24 and FY25 are anticipated to be consistent. Something else that will likely have an impact in the coming fiscal year is the anticipated service reductions of 5 to 10% across WMATA rail and bus and paratransit services. You know, the department reported that will place additional demands on their services, and they'll have to adapt and deal with that. Taxi cabs, quick note, the mass inspection was performed in FY24, which was passed by 87 taxi cab owner operators. And since November 23, the department has resumed full taxi cab administration and enforcement, including the associated fees and services. The taxi board continues to be a challenge getting a quorum to conduct business. That was noted. I would just direct you to the attachments I and J that were distributed to you by email this morning and have been available prior to that. for the full list of road resurfacing projects completed in FY24 and those proposed for FY25. Litter and illegal dumping, which was referenced in the DOE discussion. DPW&T in FY23 removed approximately 5,341 tons of litter and debris in response to 4,549 complaints, both of which were substantial increases over FY22 figures. And the estimated FY24 and projected FY25 numbers are expected to be more stable. Let's see. Okay, moving on to the grant fund real briefly. Grant fund, as mentioned before, is about 17 million, which is a decrease of 15.4 million or 47.5% below. Again, that's largely due to the removal of the big DOT FTA low to no emission bus grant. Grant fund staffing increases to 19 positions with the addition of 1 ARPA position for FY25. That full-time total is 3 merit employees and 16 limited-term grant-funded positions. Department reported 2 grant-funded vacancies currently. Stormwater Management Enterprise Fund, as mentioned earlier, remains the same at 22.7 million. As of March 2024, the department reported 31 full-time Stormwater Management Enterprise Fund vacancies. And again, those can be seen on the table referenced earlier.
Mr. Hamlin, we
Yes.
need to keep moving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go to the Special Revenue Fund. I did want to point out that fund, which is comprised of money received from TNS, Transportation Network Services like Uber and Lyft, has rebounded. The intake has rebounded since the pandemic, where it kind of cratered and is continuing upward. One other thing to note with that is this is on page 19. The fund balance for that fund has been growing substantially from 2019, where it was 7.8 million. It's estimated at 15.7 million in FY24. And there's 1.2 million kept in reserve, but again, that balance is growing as these funds continue to come in. Really quick capital budget overview. The total planned expenditure for FY25 in the CIP is 50.7 million. The program includes or has 1 deleted project, which is the amphitheater project, which was moved to another county agency, but also has the added FBI headquarters project. There are several projects which have been completed and are still in the program for closeout. Those are listed beginning on page 20. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. And, just the highlights of the CIP program are beginning on page 21, of note, Blue Line Corridor project, bridge replacement and repairs, bus mass transit and metro access, which receives 900,000 from the Transportation Services Improvement Special Revenue Fund, and then the usual ones after that. So with that, I apologize for taking so long, but that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Appreciate it. Let me turn to Director Johnson.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, the members of the committee. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce a new member of our leadership team, Mr. Stacy Smalls. He's a new Deputy Director. And he'll be in charge of highway maintenance, storm drain management, and engineering and project management.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Stacy Smalls.
Okay, so let's see how this goes. How do I move it forward, this? Oh, no. Okay. Down. Okay,
There you
gotcha. Okay, so the department is, as shown, is organized into sort of 6 offices, as shown on the screen there. And we continue to provide really cutting-edge services to our residents with a lot of innovative approaches to long-standing problems. We'd like to sort of just quickly go through those in the presentation that we have here. So for the first time in a long time, the department had a snow season. Last year we had 7 snow events, and our snow season runs through mid-December and ends in mid of March. We were extremely satisfied with the performance of the department in terms of how we tackled the snow events. We had nearly 600 county employees working along with contractors. We integrate a digital way of monitoring our performance to ensure that we improve the quality and ensure that all streets are treated appropriately and in a safe manner. Another huge area for us is tied to the 311 system. And one of the big accomplishments was in the tree trimming. We had over 6,000 legacy requests, many going back as far as 7 years. And the department has recently completed all of those. Those are sort of zeroed out. And we are beginning to, the Motorola was the old 311 system. We now have the Salesforce system, which is new. And we are sort of cutting through the backlog in that. Our goal is really to remove the backlog so that we can move to sort of a proactive posture and a maintenance posture, which is what our department is really set up to do. So here, this shows, as we look at the entire PGC 311, 2 years ago, roughly when I joined the department, we had nearly 20,000 backlogged items. And through diligent work by an entire team led, largely by Deputy Director Ola Bentley, you can see the progress that was made in a very short period of time. So our backlog is roughly somewhere around 5,000 items, and we're sort of working to get that eliminated. Our goal, as I mentioned, is to not really have a backlog so that we can proactively address complaints that come in to the department. Another huge area that is new for us, Prince George's County has not really had a comprehensive street sweeping program in residential areas. The department did sweep collectors and arterials, some industrial areas, some residential areas, selective areas. We are in the process of rolling out comprehensive residential street sweeping. And we thank you for the sweepers that were, budgeted for last year. And we put in another sweeper for this year to give us some redundancy in the program. But this is a huge program that will be broken out into 2 phases. Phase 1 will be rolled out this summer. And we'll be sweeping about a little over 700 curb miles every 5 weeks. And phase 2, we'll be up to nearly 1,600 curb miles, and that will be covered by a fleet of 5 machines, and they'll be swept like every 5 weeks. Now, to put it in some context, Montgomery County sweeps for 3 months a year, and they sweep about 4,100 curb miles. We'll be sweeping nearly 5,000 every 3 months, and we'll be sweeping for 28 weeks. So we'll be providing a far greater, a more robust approach to it. This came out of the initiative that was started in November of 2022, and the county executive directed us to improve the litter in the county. And in going through the blitz, as it was called at the time, we discovered that we had one sweeper at the time. That one sweeper picked up nearly 300 tons of litter. So that really told us something, there's a lot of residual litter that's in the gutter pans, as you can see in the slide, that really a human being cannot collect. It's really better suited for a machine to collect. So we are really optimistic that this will improve the overall cleanliness of our streets and the concomitant improvements to the Chesapeake Bay as stormwater runs eventually to the bay.
That would probably help our TMDL as well, the total maximum daily load on the waterways.
It does, because the sweepers that we are acquiring are called regenerative air sweepers. Now, they're different from vacuums or brooms. Those sweepers have the ability to pick up nitrogen and phosphorus in addition to litter. So that definitely will reduce TMDL loads of those pollutants. Residual salt will also be picked up, and ultimately all the water flows to the bay, and this will sort of be very beneficial to that. We're taking a different approach also in the way in which we are approaching streets. Now, this graphic shows, broken down by councilmanic district, the roadway conditions within equity emphasis areas within each district. Now, to just step back slightly, what we did, the county in 2018 began to sort of use the PCI, Pavement Condition Index, measure to have an objective way to determine what conditions of roads are in the county. We have nearly 40,000 streets in the county, more than 2,000 miles of roads. And for the first time in about 10 years, we reassessed the entire county network. And our network average is somewhere around 62 out of 100. We would like to improve that number significantly, but we want to sort of take a more strategic approach to how we do this. As you can see on this and in the subsequent slide, districts do not have the same number of miles of roads. And equity emphasis is also something that we would like to focus on. If you take District 2, you will see that most of that district has roads below PCI 55 that are in equity emphasis, but District 4 does not, and District 9 has less. Right? So what we want to sort of weight the approach in which we are paving our roads to incorporate that into it, so that we are a little fairer in how we are sort of dealing with our communities. I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. Oh, did you want to see that? Okay. Yes. So District 9 has a quarter of the streets. We're just concerned with the miles. Right. But you can see that the PCI, if you look at the PCIs here, that the PCIs are pretty high in some of the districts. District 1 has the lowest, and that would sort of indicate that we probably should be doing some more work in the district to bring things up. Our goal is really to improve our overall PCI, to bring it closer to mid-60s, which we feel is a fairer number. Another great initiative that we're working on is the sidewalk trip hazard mitigation program. Now, many of the older communities were built at times before arborists were involved, when trees were planted. So they tended to plant the wrong tree in the wrong place. So one of our most successful programs is called Right Tree, Right Place. And what it attempts to do is to correct that legacy problem by making sure that we're planting the right tree in the right width of planting space. However, these problems remain, and in many of the older communities, you find that the sidewalks are sort of not level. They're geometric defects. They may not be structural defects in that they can't really carry the weight, but they do make it difficult to sort of traverse, ride a bike on, walk on, things of that nature. So we started a program on a pilot basis. We have 19 locations, of which 16 have been done. We started this last November. And since last November, we have eliminated nearly 15,000 trip hazards from sidewalks using this approach. And what this does is that it removes the portion of the sidewalk that is posing a trip hazard. That works because the sidewalk is about 4 inches thick, and we're removing like a fraction of an inch. Like, you can trip on like a quarter of an inch, something like that. So we level it off so that the sidewalk is sort of passable once again. And we've had we're very pleased with that pilot and plan to sort of expand that integrate it into our program going forward, into our operations going forward. Another big issue, a big initiative that we're working on is dealing with sidewalks once again. And we want to sort of use data. We always use data to try to drive the operations of the department. So what we are currently doing is we are going to, for the first time, collect condition data for the sidewalks in Prince George's County. It is not known, other than a very rough estimate, the entire mileage of sidewalk that is available, that's present in the county. But we will know this later this year. Not only will we know the mileage, not only will we know the missing areas where sidewalks should be, not only will we know whether our ADA ramps are conforming to the ADA standard, but we will also have a condition rating for the sidewalks, which will then allow us to move to a programmatic approach to addressing it. With these types of large initiatives, unless you can turn it into a program, you're often going to spend a lot of money with very uneven sort of results. And we are very confident that coming out of this exercise, we will be able to sort of have a sidewalk program which can be funded, costed, funded, and scheduled. And then that will allow us to sort of have an accountable way of delivering that particular improvement. We're not only doing great work in the infrastructure side, but we also are very concerned with our workforce development. And we have, in the Office of Administrative Services, headed by the Associate Director Ebony Gateway Crenshaw, we have begun we spun up a workforce development unit, and one of the large initiatives that we're working on is what we're calling our career ladder. Now, to give some context, within the DPW, and this is common in DPWs, it's not particular to ours, staff often do not have a clear picture as to how they progress in their careers. And this has collateral effects, negative effects, in that it affects morale. It affects, the ability to sort of upskill staff and, retain and attract staff. So our program is a comprehensive program that will correct those deficiencies. And it's being done not in the director's office where I'm sitting in my office and sort of creating this. We have integrated staff from all levels throughout the organization to help us put this together. And I think we're doing terrific work on this. I really am pleased and excited, as are our members of staff, with what we will produce coming out of this, which will be beneficial to the department today and for years to come. So I'll ask Olushe to talk about trends.
All right, I think it's good afternoon now. All right, good afternoon. I'll keep it quick. But we're excited to move forward. I think we still need a presentation up. But we're excited to move forward on our transit initiatives. We launched Prince George's County Transit Transformation in October of last year. And we're continuing with the 4 efforts. I'll just keep talking. Okay. All right. One of those initiatives is our Transit Vision Plan, which is a 5-year plan that looks at really changing the transit network. We've worked with and partner with WMATA to analyze all of the transit deserts or gaps in access and accessibility throughout the county. And so we're going to be pushing that forward. Our zero emissions bus, where we're trying to transition and actively and aggressively transitioning our fleet to zero emissions. I'll go into some detail there. Transit Forward looks at really the quality of our service, really improving the customer experience, and improving our reliability and efficiency of service. And then our service changes, which there are a couple of new service changes happening this spring. And on June 3rd, we will be introducing, drum roll please, really exciting, 2 new routes, one from Greenbelt to Laurel, using our travel demand analysis and in partnership again with WMATA through their Better Bus Network. We identified areas throughout the county that lacked transit service. So Greenbelt to Laurel was one of them, and we'll be actually going, this line will go through the Laurel Regional Hospital and a couple of senior centers as well. The second route is the Route 29, which will go from Largo to Landover. So these 2 new routes is just the beginning of what we hope to expand over the 5-year period. We did a couple of route adjustments, and we'll be introducing microtransit, which is an on-demand service. Some routes and areas in the county does not warrant fixed route service, but similar to how we all have gotten accustomed to the Uber and the Lyfts, microtransit allows the opportunity for on-demand service, so where transit service is needed. So we're looking at 3 zones, and according to the data that we pulled post-COVID, we're looking at expanding in the Bowie, Clinton, and Laurel area. As I mentioned earlier, our transit vision plan, an extensive amount of outreach and stakeholder engagement. We have, since the beginning of fall of last year into now the spring and summer, over 15 events. We've talked to we've been at community meetings, pop-ups, going to high ridership routes, having webinars, partnering with WMATA, going to senior centers, municipalities, et cetera, to really get the word out about the transit vision plan. We hope to release late spring, early summer. Some of the spring service changes that I had mentioned earlier, the addition of the 2 routes. There are, some service extensions as well that we're pretty happy to announce as well. The Route 30 we'll have stops at the Iverson Mall and Suitland Metro Station. The Route 36 extending to Branch Avenue. So these are just the beginnings of what we're seeing, and we're seeing progress. We did a fall service change. The county hasn't had a major service change in a while. So in the fall, we made a lot of adjustments, and we've seen that improvement. Actually, let me go back up. We've seen that improvement in on-time performance, where system-wide we're at about 73%. Our goal by the end of fiscal year 24 is 75%. We know that best practice is to be at least 80, so we're making progress there. And then our zero emissions bus transition. I want to thank Chair Ivy for your support in really getting the letter out, the support letter out. We're actively going for grants. We're going to be applying for it, which is due today. The team is working hard on that to get that submitted today, but we're going to be submitting a nearly $40 million grant to complete phase 2 of our microgrid. And this is more on the construction side. Phase 1 was more the design, which would be able to charge up to nearly 80 buses at the same time. And so we're happy about that. Our $40 million Proud to Charge initiative, which was last year, was really our largest grant since then. So we're hoping to match that next year. So again, our goal is to be at 70% by 2035. If we do win this grant, we'll be about 50% of our fleet at zero emissions bus. So we're excited to move forward on those initiatives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Audrey. So we continue to focus, and I'll just go through the rest of this fairly quickly. Continue to focus on safety, as everyone is aware. Prince George's County has many streets that are sort of fairly dangerous. While they are state roads, while the majority are state roads, we do have a few that are county roads. And we are working assiduously to improve that and sort of get to zero deaths. So we were successful in getting a grant to make safety improvements to 7 of those from US DOT. We have a reconstituted Vision Zero team, that uses data to sort of find ways to integrate engineering as well as some of the other features into roadway safety. The goal being to shift from the traditional 6 E's to a safe system approach, which is the current metamorphosis of the thinking on roadway safety. Let's go into the capital program quickly. So the capital deals with, we have like storm drain and culvert repairs, bridge repairs, intersection, traffic signals, roadway safety, sidewalk and pedestrian, as well as project planning. And these are some of our accomplishments for the past fiscal year. So we resurfaced 12 miles of roads by contractors, and you can see the other stats that are there, but you can see that the team is extremely busy doing a lot of work that really makes a big difference in terms of roadway condition and overall safety. So some of our traffic safety accomplishments of the last year was Ritchie Marlborough Road from Brook Lane to Marlborough Point Drive. That road was a sort of a wide cartway with an aspirational media. It had been painted, so it was very dependent on the driver not doing something that was a bit reckless. That tended to be the practice, and that road had a lot of accidents. So what we did was we reduced the travel lane to 2 lanes in each direction, and a median has been put in. We also installed a signal at Brook Lane, which sort of has helped to sort of meter the traffic, particularly going into the school in that vicinity there. We also installed RRFBs along Adelphi Road, and that's the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And that is often installed in locations where we cannot get the warrants for a traffic signal. It's not appropriate to use a signal, all right? That is really not something that the department controls, but it is a federal and a state requirement as to when signals or other traffic control devices can be installed. We did also a very nice pedestrian safety improvement on Good Luck Road near the Dianet Center. That was a very wide cartway which had a fatality, lots of other injuries from conflicts with pedestrians with vehicles. Median was installed, RFB was put in, a wider and more visible crosswalk. And I think it is performing quite well from the feedback that I'm getting. We also installed sidewalk along Old Crane Highway in Upper Marlborough, and the residents there were extremely ecstatic because they can now sort of walk safely, to use that street. We also are working on doing a lot of work on our bridge program. Here is on the left, it shows before that was a pre-stress box beam bridge. You had some delamination of the box, which means that it's losing strength, and it was a safety concern. This is the replacement structure that is being installed on the right, and they are actually ahead of schedule, I'm told, by the engineering team that's working on that. Here, this is Chilham Road, which was another very wide cartway that had some pedestrian issues, conflicts with vehicles. A mini roundabout was installed there, and narrowing of lanes, wider and more visible striping for crosswalks. And it's an overall safety improvement to that particular intersection, which had been very problematic for a long time. We continue to do, great work on the stormwater restoration, flood control. These are, a list of the future projects that that division will be working on, that office will be working on. We are close to completing our obligations under the consent decree, and Director Crooms did mention that we'd be out of that fairly soon. And this sort of shows, what is our portion that is remaining. So we are ahead of schedule, and we are very pleased with the performance in this area. Pond maintenance, we have 900 ponds, facilities that we're responsible for. This gives information on the mowing, the required triennial inspections every 3 years. It must be inspected, as well as information on sort of the pipes and risers and other things like that need to be replaced periodically. The Right Tree, Right Place program I mentioned, we receive a grant from the Chesapeake trust, the trust for that, for planting trees. And there's a tremendous, we've planted about 7,000 trees, which are sort of native to the area, which is the right way to sort of ensure that you don't have problems in the future. Another innovative idea that we use is that we have, in looking at our GIS, we have more than 200 medians countywide. And many of the medians serve a utilitarian purpose. They separate traffic going in opposite directions. There's an opportunity we saw to sort of beautify those medians and as part of like place gathering and beautifying areas. So we did a pilot on that, and I think it's been very successful. Here you can see one exemplar of what it looked like before and after. And we're really pleased, and as funding dictates, we plan to expand this. And this is our budget, which we sort of went over, and our grants. And I think that's it. So I'm available.
Thank you,
We're available for any
Johnson.
questions.
Appreciate it. I know we're bumping up against the next committee in about a half an hour, but let me go to Vice Chair Harrison and then to Councilmember Fisher, and then we'll turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank the Department of Public Works and Transportation, all the staff, all the professional, hardworking individuals in your agency for what you all do each and every day. Anytime you're dealing with road infrastructure, it's not easy. My first question is, and I didn't see it in your presentation, but just for context for the public that might be watching, pre-pandemic costs and where we are today, especially when it comes to asphalt and road repair. I've heard, and I don't know how true this is, so that's why I'm asking you, that the cost has gone up 3 to 4 times than what it was before the pandemic. Do you have any information about the cost of asphalt and how that has kind of might have been challenging for the route, the amount of miles that we're trying to pave?
Yes, Councilman. So I don't think the markup has been as high as 3 times, because it's really driven a lot by the price of oil. So when you have, if you have conflict in the Gulf or something that causes, or at Russia, and something that causes oil prices to rise, you will have a concomitant rise in the asphalt price. However, it does cost us about $750,000 a mile to pave roads. So it's not a cheap approach. So the way that we are sort of approaching this is that the traditional way the department had looked at this is that we paved, we milled 2 inches, and then we repaved 2 inches. So 2 off, 2 on. We, in discussing it with, internally with our engineering staff, we feel that there is a different way in which we could approach this, in that for this reason, that all roads are not the same. Ritchie Marlborough Road, which carries a very high volume of traffic and is a collector or type of a road, arterial type road, is not the same as a residential road, which carries a very low volume of traffic. So we are exploring alternative ways of paving roads which provide adequate life, strength, and prevent water from getting into the base of the road, because that's really what kills a road. When you have an ability for water to enter, and then in the winter it freezes, and you get freeze and thaw, and it sort of breaks the road up. You get potholes and degradation of the road. So by using alternative ways with different costs, we are within the budgetary constraints that we have, going to be able to do more paving than we actually do just doing two off and two on. So, as you mentioned, roads are expensive to build, right, and to maintain, but you don't have to have one way of tackling the improvements.
Thank you, Director. And the reason why I was bringing that up, I know in the past that we used to invest, I think it was about, my numbers could be skewed, but 36 million in past budgets. And this year, my question for you, Mr. Early, where we stand about roadway improvements when it comes to the districts?
Well, we'd actually had 25 million, but then last year we went to 36.
Yeah.
And that was partly because we were going to have we anticipated getting additional federal money, which we did not get. And so what we are trying to do now is simply maintain the level of county-supported road and curb work that we had committed to.
So that's about, what, 3.1 million per district if we broke it up?
If you broke it up that way.
Okay. All right, and the reason why I'm saying that, with the 25% budget reduction, and then you said there was a 47% grant funding. Is that what I heard? Decrease. I heard the word decrease in your grant funding projection.
Is that the case?
Huh? I just want to make sure I heard that right, or maybe I heard it wrong.
No, you heard it correctly. However, the grant funding that was not actualized was on the operating side and not the CIP side.
Okay. All right. And the reason why I'm saying that those grants have helped, especially in my district, with the bridge repair on Mollyberry, which is a 60-year-old bridge that was concrete and then had wood underneath. The wood was gone. So, I think our grants, just the importance of our grant funding is important. So $40 million to upgrade your energy kind of mission that you're trying to do there is very, very, very important.
And the funding sources are not the same. Like for the bridge program, it's largely federally funded. A lot of our bridges are federally funded, and they're driven by the structural condition. And we've been extremely successful in terms of not only winning grants for that and then winning awards once the bridge has been done. So we are, our bridge program is very robust, very well funded, and we're pleased with that.
So, and my last question, real fast, you used to have 288 operational staffing. Now you're going to 289. One additional position, is that correct?
Funded from the general fund.
Funded from the general fund, yeah. Mr. Early, my question is: after this person is hired, we heard about 800 positions that are hiring freeze across our county agencies. Is this one of the agencies where there is a hiring freeze on?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. I'm good.
Okay, Councilmember Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we're being slow on time. It's great to see you, Director Johnson, you and your team. Of course, my fellow Deputy Director does an amazing job, and I'm very grateful. I realized I forgot to copy you, Madam Deputy Director, but I'll resend an email. I was curious about and everyone knows I love electric charging. I was, my poor colleagues, I was curious about how what you're doing to retrofit that, and I copied a contact at the school system because they also have electric charging with the buses, and I wanted us to do something that was together and made sense rather than separate. I don't even know if that works, but that was my question, and what you all were looking for that to retrofit all of that, and I'll resend the email as
Perfect.
well.
Okay.
Mr. Dernog, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Please unmute.
I think I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, Tom.
I am unmuted.
There you go. Yep. Go ahead.
Couple questions. Mr. Director, I wrote to you about a week ago about Rhode Island Avenue. This is an issue in College Park where we have people walking in the road. It's been going on for years. People complained. And the Department of Public Works, when we asked about putting in sidewalks, said they were going to come up with a design back in 21. Last communication was in the summer of 22, I believe, with the statement that the concept would be finished by the end of 22. When I wrote you last week, it seems like nothing's been done. It's a very, if we're talking about sidewalks, we're talking about pedestrian safety, I don't understand what's going on with the Rhode Island Avenue section outside the city limits up to Sunnyside.
And sort of speaking with the engineering staff to understand what had transpired, they relayed to me that the initial scoping of the project was expanded significantly over what was presented in 22, or the earlier years. So as a consequence, the project is significantly larger and requires a greater engineering effort to deliver it, and that really is the explanation for why there has been this delay in terms of getting it moving. However, they are working on that, and once we have a clearer picture, I don't have the exact timeline right now because it is still the scoping is not finalized yet, or is more or less in that stage where we're not able to give a very concrete completion date for the delivery date for it. But once we have that, we'll be able to relay that.
I hear you, but this has been 4 years. I mean, it's literally been 4 years, and it is a very dangerous stretch. We have people walking in the road. I'm sure there's plenty of places around the county. The only point I would make is this has been 4 years. I've only identified one location where I'm concerned about this in my district, although I'm sure there are many more. And the city of College Park and the residents in the area are asked the question, well, can't we just put down a sidewalk? And of course, the answer from DPW is it's not that simple. There's stormwater management, et cetera. But, in the sake of getting it done right, we're not getting it done at all. And we don't even have a design. This came up a week or two ago because the Congressman Hoyer and Congressman Ivey are looking to spend money on local projects like this, and we didn't have anything to give them.
I understand the frustration that this poses, but I think that was the answer that and I understood clearly what they were saying. If the scope was different from what was presented in 22, you couldn't really. You don't really have a fundable project as such where you could put it in you're unlikely to prevail in getting any money because your scope is not developed enough to make it fundable. And that really is something that, has become a priority for them to finalize that and move it forward through the delivery chain. But it's not something that is ready for that at this point. Largely because of things you've mentioned. They're complex stormwater issues. There's acquisition issues, right-of-way issues, and other things that sort of delay the project. With these types of projects, unfortunately, a lot of the time is spent in the prep work. The actual construction of a sidewalk or a roadway is actually de minimis in time in the time it takes to do that compared to the permitting and the regulatory compliance piece that really is important. The project can move forward without that. It can be funded without that. So they're working on that currently.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll make this last point and I'll leave you alone on the topic. You know, my last communication with DPW was summer, fall of 22. It's almost 2 years and nobody got back to me. Yeah, and it slipped off my radar. So I hope I'll get something sooner than later in terms of communications. Just an update, you know, as we move forward. But you don't need to answer that. I'll just leave that, and because I know we're short on time. I did want to ask you. There's apparently state legislation that is now authorizing stop sign enforcement cameras. Is DPW&T going to have, I would assume, have a role in that, or is it just going to be police and multi-jurisdictional? How are we looking at this?
I think with any form of enforcement, the correct agency is the police department more than DPW&T. We would have. I would call it apocryphal reports whereby people would complain. They would call in and say, this intersection is, people are blowing through the stop sign. We can provide and the information that we receive in that manner. But really the police districts or the police department are the ones who issue citations and have the best information to provide this sort of enforcement related information. And it has to be a police program. We have no police powers that allow us to be involved in citing people or placing cameras or anything of that nature. But we can.
I'm just trying to figure out. I hear you. I don't disagree. I'm just trying to figure out, does the administration have a strategy around this? And were you blindsided by this information, or was this something you knew was coming? And we have a plan that's going to be implemented with the police and DPW working together?
We're thinking it would seem to be something that that possibly an amendment to an existing committee CAC seems to be set up to sort of deal with these sorts of issues, and they probably could be assigned to them, and that's a police department committee that's run by them. Okay. And it would seem to be they might be the better agency to sort of deal with this, as they know really the details of these infractions far better than we do.
Director Johnson, Mr. Early has something to add to this, and then I know we need to move on to the next item.
Yeah, it probably would involve police, DPW&T, and the Revenue Authority, all of which will have to have some discussion, and we'll have to, there has to be a review of how to approach this, and we are looking at that. But at this point, we don't have a fully developed plan.
Mr. Olson, I recommend you schedule a future TIEE discussion on this.
Yeah, Mr. Battle is here making notes, so sounds good.
I have one last question. About the new equity emphasis data approach. Since I joined the council 22 years ago, we've always, as a council, advocated for more money for road repaving. And back then it was pushing it to get to 18 to 20 million. The last number of years we've had it up in the low 30 millions. And every year we supposedly divided it 9 ways across districts. Am I hearing you say that you're redistributing the money, or the distribution is going to be done in a different way, and different districts will get different levels of funding?
It is possible, as we're beginning to look at this, and it's possible that it may not be a strict like 9 divided into the money divided into 9, because all the as you see, if you go back to the chart, if you look at that chart, like some of the districts have fairly high PCIs. Our goal really is to improve the network performance of the county roads. So, we have to sort of maybe look at it a little more strategically than just dividing it across in that equal kind of a fashion. I don't think we'll have the punch that if doing it that way than if we sort of like spent money on roads that maybe in greater need of treatment in respective districts or portions of districts.
I would argue this: if you're going to change the way you decide to use those funds, that the council understand the formula that you're using. I mean, these charts are nice, but they don't tell us what the consequence is. In my district, is one of these charts is an interesting, case study. There's a lot of blue, but when you get down to the summary statistics page, I have the lowest PCI. So what does that mean? I've got more blue than 2 or 3 districts, but I've got the worst rating of every district. So what does that translate into? And then District 4, it's all blue. It's 100% blue, and they have a very high PCI. So they're getting no money. I mean, because keep in mind, if we're talking, was it 25 million divided by, or 27 million divided by 9? We're only getting 2 to 3 million a district if we divide it equally. If we adjust that, you're talking something less than 2 to 3 million for some districts, and you can't pay very many road sections on $1 million. So there's equity that goes a couple of different ways. I think we need to understand the formula that you're going to use.
Something that we're developing, Councilman. We're not in a position to answer that yet, but we will have that developed in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Chairman.
We'll look at that. Where's Mr. Burrows? All right, Ms. Blagay, please, quickly.
I'm so sorry. I mean, I will be as quick as I can. I'll send follow-up emails. I will be honest. Road infrastructure is the biggest issue in my district. And I brought that to you before. I just want to start with a couple things. First of all, I want to know, I had a traffic calming committee. I probably wouldn't even run here if I didn't have a traffic calming committee that nobody from your agency showed up. Not one person. And I just want to note that many of the things that I brought to your attention, you've seen that when you came to my office last year, I brought to you the Richie Marlboro situation because we had people in my district coming to me saying that there needed to be something done. Literally 2 weeks later, that girl was killed. And I just want to note that I know I can be annoying about this, but the reality is that it's because it's a big issue. We had a whole town hall, Westphalia. The biggest issue was that Westphalia and DRC Road, someone will die if we don't have something done in Westphalia. Westphalia has a lot of road infrastructure issues. So I just want to ask, I did send you a list a couple after the traffic calming of about 20 roads that needed upgrades. I did want to know, what is the process? Are you all putting more money into just upgrading some of the roads throughout the county? I mean, I'm specifically talking about my district. I do see this list here, but we have a number of places that need immediate attention.
So, Councilmember, the way in which roads are, the department does not take a road and sort of improve they put in medians and other sidewalks and things of that. That's not the way that the roads are dealt with. A lot of those improvements are tied to abutting developments that the developer, by the county code, is required to make frontage improvements of roads. So if you have a developer A who is building, a development on a particular parcel, but by the permit that they receive from DPI, part and parcel of that permit requires them to make pre-agreed upon improvements to the frontage. That's the way the county code is.
I know, but that's backwards, because the problem is people are building off of roads that are not upgraded overall for the traffic that's to come. So they're building, and what we're doing is putting the cart before the horse, because by the time they build that, they only are required to do frontage. You're right, but that doesn't mean they have to do the expansion. So Westphalia Road is going to have thousands of people moving on it in the next 5 years because of all the development, and all we're focused on is frontage from the developer. So what about the actual road itself?
So I'm sorry, if there are existing conditions that are dangerous, DPW&T can look into those and address
That's
those.
not what he said. What he's saying is that's the developer is going to build. But what I'm saying is that let's get ahead of the game. If we already know that there are pending development that's coming to somewhere like Westphalia, why don't we expand or try to upgrade Westphalia Road now?
Councilmember Blagay, I'm asking him to address that.
Okay.
Yeah, the answer is if something is dangerous, if we do have an identified dangerous condition, that would then become a CIP that we would make improvements to. But what we are not able, with 2,000 on one more than 2,000 miles of roads, it's not something that really, and the cost that I sort of mentioned, that's not a strategy, a financial strategy that the department is funded for or capable of doing. Our budgets would never accommodate what you are describing, where you could take a road and say, we're going to just add, whatever some speculative improvement that is not tied to a development. That probably wouldn't even be the wise way to approach it.
Director Johnson. So this is a specific example, and I think it is very important that we look at that. But there are also, you had examples that you showed in this presentation of, reducing from 2 lanes to 1 lane. You have some other improvements like that. I mean, clearly there's a program that you're doing some of these I'm not saying like you're going to do everything all at once, but maybe we can talk about that more offline. I know we definitely need to talk. Right. We have like 10 minutes for everybody else.
I understand. And here's what I would say. We're doing sector plans everywhere. And it makes no sense to me that we're putting together sector plans and streets in this sector plan are not lined up for any type of upgrades from DPW&T until something happens. So Richie Marlboro, something happened. So now we did it. But the reality is that some of these the point of putting sector plans and all of these together is so that there can be upgrades on roads in anticipation of what's coming. We're not doing that. So now I've got my community screaming at me every week. Literally, I say you all doing upgrades. Literally every day we get multiple emails about road infrastructure issues, all up and down, all throughout District 6. So I would like to work with you. The second part, I'm sorry, this is so much. Vision Zero is my understanding. Can you explain what the money for Vision Zero is doing? Because to me, the best way to stop any type of fatalities on road is upgrading these streets, putting sidewalks on the street, putting actual traffic lights. That's the way you stop it. Any other thing to tell people, hey, don't cross the street when the car is not coming, that's not going to stop people from getting killed. So I just want to know, what is Vision Zero doing, and can we take that Vision Zero money and start to upgrade some of these streets, put some sidewalks on the roads?
Sidewalks, we are doing that. Sidewalks are part of it. The traffic safety or roadway safety is not just one thing. It's not just like if you put sidewalks in that in and of itself would stop people from speeding, running, traffic control devices, or other kinds of behaviors that contribute to making roadways dangerous. What the Vision Zero, just very quickly, I know we're short of time, what the Vision Zero program is doing is that it is taking a set of data from different sources, including we're recently adding near misses, locations that have had near misses. And then based on that data, you're able to then develop a plan as to what is needed, because you will find that road A's, what you need to do to road A to make it safe is not what you need to do to road X. It's not like a cookie cutter that you can say you do if I do these 5 things, the road will be safe. Yeah. It has to be specific to the road. So the Vision Zero Pro, and I could be glad to sort of talk more. I know we don't have a lot of time right now to go into that.
Mr. Early wanted to say
I just want to make a quick comment that there are structures like road clubs that are set up for developers to pay into when developments are being created around major roads. We that set up funds to address some of the issues you're discussing, and I think at some other point we can have an additional discussion about that.
Yeah, we're obviously going to have more discussion around all of this. But
again, one more question: does the transportation, the money that a developer pays into for transportation upgrades, does that go into a separate fund, or does that go into the general fund?
Mr. Early.
It does not go into it. It goes into a pool for transportation projects. It's not part of the general operating fund.
Okay, so it's a separate fund that is okay. So I just want to make sure, because when I met with Park and Planning, we were told that it went to some sort of general fund. So meaning that anybody who has a project and they pay their payment, it goes straight into just that upgrade for that particular road and nowhere else, right?
It goes into a pool for the roads. That's a fairly complex discussion about whether it's for that road or for a set of roads and so forth. But it's for roads.
Okay, well, I will stop. I would say this. I really hope that I start getting responses directly from you all. And if we get responses or get to work together, I wouldn't have to run to a committee to get your attention.
Mr. Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question around the capital bike share locations. It was brought to my attention pretty recently that there are over 20 new capital bike share locations being added to the northern part of the county, and we're not seeing that same level in the southern part of the county. Can I get some explanation on that?
I think the capital bike share, one of the criteria that had been used was density, right? Which sort of is sort of related to demand in a sense. It's kind of related to demand. So in the southern part of the county, I think in the way that it was being looked at, that might be the explanation as to why it was skewed in that fashion.
I think a lot of decisions from the Alston-Brooks administration has been skewed towards the north, frankly. And maybe one of the bases is density, but we're paying taxes too in the southern part of the county. And the reason why I'm raising this is because residents of mine in Fort Washington desperately want these capital bike share locations. And while we don't have the density of the north western part of the county, we are also tax-paying citizens that matter, and we should be treated equitably, and that does not appear to be the case. So what needs to happen for us to get some geographical equity?
So I'm sorry, I do see in our memo from Mr. Hamlin, the bike share initiative, that there's a feasibility study going on that would add to that, but I don't know where the status.
Yeah, it's a study. So we have to sort of. I was just explaining what had been the metric that was used to help decide where these facilities should have been placed. But a study is being done to sort of reassess to see how it could be more equitable to the point that you're making.
Thank you. Please communicate that with us. I look forward to working with you. There's a group that is in contact with our chair, and that's in my district for Washington Forward, that has sent a list of possible locations. We want to work collaboratively, but we want our due representation. And when we look at schools, community centers, libraries, bike lanes, it's all been skewed to the north, as if the folks in the southern part of the county don't matter, as if we don't pay taxes. And so a part of your metric should be, and I guess maybe this is for the liaison at the end, should be geographical diversity. Are you the liaison? Oh, you're not the liaison?
You can have to step out for a few minutes.
Okay. Geographical diversity has to be a part of the equation. But I thank you for your work.
So hopefully we can continue the conversation about the bike share and future locations, because I know that there is feasibility. Ms. Oriata.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Similar to Council Member Denoga, and we can do this offline, but just want a better understanding of the chart, what this means, what that's going to look like for forward programming. Because just like looking at it, I don't really understand, right? Like, how we collect the data, what does it mean? So just making sure that we dive into this and have an understanding, hopefully before this is used as like the decision matrix moving forward. So I did have a couple of questions. One for the sidewalk program, and I think it was 60 plus maybe sidewalks that had been done. Is there like a dashboard and a way we can see like what communities, like broken down by district, where we've seen those?
repairs?
We don't have a dashboard developed, but the listing is in the presentation.
Oh, sorry,
Right.
not sidewalks. I meant to say speed bumps.
Oh, speed humps.
Yeah.
Okay. We could provide that information. I mean, we don't have a dashboard for speed humps per se, but we can provide locations, a list where we have installed those.
I think too, when we get into this process, I'll assume other districts have the same issue where we get a lot of requests for speed bumps. And so if we could have an understanding of what was all requested, what was denied, what ones were done, and then what's in the queue pending. I think that would be helpful when we're just trying to answer those questions for our community. If we have that annually that we can see. Also, there was a part where we had workforce development, and I know that you guys are doing a lot with, I guess, training and career development. And then I would assume that also means with bringing new employees in as well. And so this is a question for you all, but also I think maybe a broader question for all the agency. It just makes me think about the work we're doing specifically around with our shelter programs, because I've been working with like bringing Employee Prince George's into the shelter because at first they weren't doing regular stops. But then that makes me think, we have all these vacancies. Are there opportunities and partnerships there to create like a pipeline of training and hiring for definitely in like public works?
Yes, I mean, certainly is. Of course, I mean, we are, if there is a hiring freeze for now, right, it restricts our onboarding process, but we are definitely looking at ways to sort of bring people in. And the whole purpose of doing that exercise is really to serve not only as a retention tool, but also a way to attract workers to the department, because we definitely need to sort of keep fresh people coming in and giving them opportunities once they enter, so they stay and develop their skills, and it helps the department become stronger in what it does.
And that's something I know we have the hiring freeze now, but I'd hope to see like a program, and this is, I guess, for whoever is representing the county as a whole right now, administration side, that we could think about creating that pipeline specifically with the shelter programs, because I think there's an opportunity there, and there's a huge need. I do a lot of work in the shelters in my district, and we see all of these like vacancy rates, and I think that's just an opportunity that we have that we could be capitalizing better on. And then I have a question about the projects we see for what's been completed and what's in the queue for completion. Because when I looked at the one, you have one for completed in 2024. But do you just mean that as of date? Because there's some that are in this chart that I was told was completed in like last budget cycle. So it's just like a more comprehensive list, not what was just done in the last budget cycle, just so I can make sure I'm reading it correctly, because the budget list I have for complete streets in my first year had said these were already completed. Some of these were already completed.
I think in the first year, what we did is we changed, Councilmember, we changed the way in which we were reporting it. We were reporting it in tranches of 2 or 3 years, I believe. And it didn't mean that in any given year that you were looking at it, that those were the streets that would be done in that particular year. It was over the entire sort of window that we were looking at. So what we have done recently is that we have put the paving progress on what's called the story map. It's on the web page. It's forward facing, and it's available to look at, and you'll see geographically where our paving program is, streets that have been done, whether it was slurried, which is suitable for residential streets, or whether we milled and paved, or other methods of improving the roads that are forthcoming. So we want really to be, forward-facing and very transparent with what we do. But, we could provide you a list of streets that we have done. There's, that's not a problem, but it's on the website and can be found there.
And so in that dashboard, is it like also clear what's slated for the FY 2025 budget? Like if a resident wanted to go see what was going to be done, they could easily find that? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's also reflected in this list, or is this the full list of what's left? This chart that you gave us.
I'm not sure which one what that is. Good. Yeah.
Is that just everything that's left, not just what's slated to be done?
This is what is slated to be done. To be done.
Just in 2025.
Right. Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now I have a minute. It's fine. Actually, Chair Watson has indulged us we can go over a few minutes, but I don't endeavor to do that. Just a few things that I wanted to bring up. So sidewalks, just generally getting new sidewalks, and I'm being parochial here, but it does translate to the whole county. There are places where we desperately need sidewalks to get to where the purple line will be. That's only a few years out. We need to be planning now. We need to be putting them in this year or next year. Also, sidewalks just that have been lacking for kids to get to school and that kind of thing. We have a fund that then we tap into for sidewalks. We don't need to identify specific sidewalks in the budget. We just need to identify them to you, and then they go into tap into that fund. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Councilman. So as I had mentioned, the way that we're doing it, because the county has probably thousands of miles of sidewalk, right? We don't know we'll know the number later this year as to what that is.
Yeah.
The best way, the most efficient way to approach something like that is through a programmatic way. So the first step in that program is to assess what the need is, the condition and the need. And then we are then able to sort of, based on the budget that we receive or money we have, allocate the money in a very efficient way to sort of fill in links, repair a bad sidewalk, or use alternative treatments as we've discovered, the grinding, to improve the walkability of the walk shed.
Right. I think this council, not to speak for everybody, but my opinion is this council wants to see, more sidewalks, built, and certainly the repair sidewalks that are in need. And I know you identify them as well. So I don't know, Mr. Early, this may be something that we want to add to the budget. I know we're not in the adding to the budget mode, but this is an area that I think is very important for the whole county. So that's something I think we may want to look at. I wanted to ask you about, I know Adelphi Road, which is between Councilmember Fisher's district and mine. I appreciate the upgrades you've made to those two crossings. I know there's a larger project that relies on, I believe, a federal grant. Where are we with that?
Which one is that?
Kate knows about that.
And then while you're at it, I know Metzerat Road is also in that same grant, maybe, or maybe a different year of that grant. I did note somewhere in here that Metzerat it's a pedestrian safety, and that is somewhere in planning, but let me just raise those two.
So we actually just got our federal grant agreement, which was the huge step in receiving the SS4. And actually, just to say this, they would like to use ours as an example for other areas, because it's actually a big effort to get the grant agreement. This now allows us to move forward with the final engineering. So that's what we're getting ready to do now. We're getting ready to launch. We brought on our engineers.
Okay.
So now we can actually start scoping the projects and getting the designs. Most of the quarters are in different phases. So Metzerat is actually in two different grants. The one that's from Adelphi to 193 is in the SS4A. So we can now start to move on that scoping and planning and then into the design. So the other section is funded out of a state TAP grant, and we're actually getting ready to advertise that for construction. So
At Metzerat Road.
Metzerat from
Adelphi.
650 to Adelphi is a separate grant.
Yep.
That's 100%. We're in our final
That's
stages.
Councilmember Fisher. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, we can talk more about that offline as well. Thank you for your work on that. The urban street design standards. Thank you. We spoke recently about that. I know that your team has worked very hard on that, and to get the cross sections and the what do we call it? The standards, whatever. I'm forgetting the exact name of it, but we also are retrofitting some, over time, we try to retrofit some of the dangerous intersections and whatnot. Interested in where that falls in terms of, and I know, Councilmember Blagay talked about some roads in her area, but in terms of retrofitting, over the course of time, where are we on that? Like what's
Well, I think, Councilman, the first step was having those standards, because
Right.
one of the flaws, as you point out, with it initially, is that we had sections that no one could build. They were aspirational.
Right.
They could not fit within the real estate that we had. We now, once that's
Right.
adopted and
Right.
becomes law, we now will have sections that can be retrofitted, so that even though we don't really have like a program for sort of retrofitting roads at this current time, if and when we do have sections that need that, we do have the cross sections that can be used, which are sort of safer.
And do we have a list of those areas that might be, and we don't have to go through them now, but do you have a list that you would be looking at in the future?
It's not
Something
in
we'd have
that
to develop.
organized way. It's something that we would have to develop.
Okay.
Right. We don't really have that at this time.
So that may be something that we need to look at closer and discuss further in the coming year and then budget for, honestly. Okay. Last item I'm just going to ask about is shade trees. That is as critical to pedestrian walkability as anything, and certainly in the summertime when it's 95 degrees out. How are we doing in terms of placing trees and getting them in the ground and making sure that they're maintained and watered and also the mounding of the bark mulch. I think that's bad for the roots. The mounding up. So, I mean,
If it
chokes
stem,
the
yeah.
But we see that in the county. So I don't know if we're.
Not from us.
Not
I
from
don't
us.
think
Okay.
not our folks.
Okay.
Our folks are sort of arborist driven.
So you can just talk a minute about shade trees and where we are on that.
So we do receive a grant from the Chesapeake Trust for trees, for DNR, excuse me, for trees. And, we have we planted 7,000 trees, and, it's an ongoing, we have a really good relationship with them. And we continue to sort of do that as we infill areas that don't have trees, mature trees. Now, the trees that are put in are smaller calipers, so they're not mature trees yet,
Right.
but they will in the coming years mature, and they won't damage the sidewalk because they're the appropriate tree for the planting strip.
It's 7,000, you said? A
We
year?
planted 7,000 trees. Right?
And many or most of those are along sidewalks and
They're
whatnot?
all along. That's the only place we can
Great.
plant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
in the right way.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm sure there's a lot more questions we could ask, but we are over our time. I'm going to ask colleagues to submit anything, additional to me, and we will be in touch with you.
Okay.
But appreciate it. Mr. Battle, is there any further business before us?
No, sir. It's time to adjourn.
Okay. Well, we move to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Motion made.
Motion made. Second. Seeing no discussion. Show of hands. We are adjourned.
Okay. Thank you.